So, who is the Lenovo Legion Tower 7i Gen 8 actually good for? Who should skip it? And is it worth the price for the average gamer, who just wants a solid experience without breaking the bank? If you're sitting on the fence because you've seen a lot of hype about i9 and RTX 4070 Super, and you're wondering whether those buzzwords translate into a machine that lets you play the latest titles at 144Hz on a 1440p monitor, you're not alone. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of day-to-day setup most people will have. Imagine you have a 27-inch 1440p panel, a mechanical keyboard, and you like to hop between a few modern shooters, a couple of open-world RPGs, and occasional streaming on Twitch. The Legion Tower ships with a 14th Gen Intel Core i9-14900KF, 32GB of DDR5 RAM, and a 1TB NVMe SSD. In real terms, that CPU can juggle a 144Hz Call of Duty session while your streaming software encodes a 1080p feed without dropping frames, and the SSD will load world assets in under a second. For a user who runs a couple of background tabs, maybe Discord and Chrome, the extra cores also mean the system stays responsive when you're swapping between chat, game, and a quick web search. Now, who should actually consider buying this tower? If you already own a high refresh monitor, and you plan to run games at 1440p or 4K with ray tracing turned on, the RTX 4070 Super provides enough raw horsepower to keep you in the 6080 frames per second range on the most demanding titles. And it can push higher frame rates on less graphically intensive games. The inclusion of a liquid cooler also means you won't be hearing a constant whine from the fans during long sessions, which is a nice touch for anyone who streams or records in a quiet room. The 3-month Xbox Game Pass for PC is a decent bonus if you're looking to sample a library of titles without buying each one individually. And if you're the type who likes to upgrade components later, say, swapping the SSD for a 2TB model, or adding a second GPU for future-proofing the tower's spacious chassis and ample rear I/O, 2.5G Ethernet, Wi-Fi 6E, multiple USB-C and USB-A ports make those upgrades relatively painless. On the flip side, this isn't the right pick for someone whose gaming budget tops out at $1,000, or who primarily plays older or indie games at 1080p. The i9-14900KF is overkill for those scenarios, and you'll be paying a premium for horsepower you'll never fully exploit. Likewise, if you're a laptop-only user, or you live in a small apartment where a 20+ liter tower would dominate the floor space, the sheer size and weight become a practical drawback. The tower also runs a bit hotter under sustained loads compared with some compact mini PCs, so you'll need to keep the surrounding area well ventilated, otherwise, the liquid cooler's pump might start to sound louder after an hour or two of intense gaming. One hidden trade-off that shows up after a few weeks is the noise curve. Lenovo's design aims for a quiet under load experience, and on a fresh build the fans stay fairly subdued. However, after you've pushed the RTX 4070 Super to its limits in a long Elden Ring marathon, the GPU fans will spin up noticeably. That's not a defect, but it's something you'll hear if your desk is right up against the tower. If you're sensitive to background noise while streaming, you might want to invest in a small acoustic pad or place the PC on a raised shelf. Another practical point is the software side. The machine comes with Windows 11 Pro, which is fine for most gamers, but the pre-installed Lenovo Vantage suite can be a bit pushy about driver updates and power profiles. I found that turning off the automatic game mode toggle gave me more consistent performance because it prevented the system from throttling the CPU when I switched to a non-gaming application. It's a small tweak, but it highlights the fact that you'll need to spend a few minutes tweaking settings to get the most out of the hardware. When it comes to value, the Legion Tower's price sits in the upper mid-range bracket for a desktop that bundles an i9 and an RTX 4070 Super. If you compare it to building a comparable system yourself, you'll notice two main cost drivers: the liquid cooler and the Lenovo branded chassis. The cooler does its job, and it saves you the hassle of buying an aftermarket AIO, but if you're comfortable installing a custom loop, you could shave a few $100s. The chassis, while aesthetically pleasing with its subtle RGB strip, doesn't offer any unique functionality beyond cable management that most mid-tower cases provide. So the real value comes from the convenience of a rear Play machine and the included Xbox Game Pass, which together could offset the premium for a buyer who doesn't want to hunt for parts. Let's look at a couple of everyday scenarios. A streamer who wants to run Fortnite at 144 Hz, stream at 1080p, and have a second monitor for chat will find the